Armstrong, I have Andy Allen, and I have Paul Frew. And on Starleaf we have Ciara Ferguson, Stephen Dunn, Aisling Riley. Is that it? Is he on you there? No? Okay. All right. That's Mark Durkin. Sorry, I'm being shouted at here from the back of the room. Thank you very much.
Who could forget Mark Durkin?
I know, who could forget Mark. Can I then offer a very warm welcome to the Minister. Minister Hardy, you're very welcome with us this morning, and I believe McCleary's there with you as well. Hello.
Yes.
How are you?
Hello.
Good to have you with us. Minister,
Hello.
do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, I think firstly, thanks, Chair, and all the committee again for short notice and agreeing to meet with us this morning just for this issue. And obviously I'm here to talk about the special rules on terminal illness. And the committee will remember that on the 30th of June of this year, I had agreed to abolish the 6-month rule, give my attempt, and then to extend to 12 months in terms of looking at this issue. And obviously since then, we have been working through in terms of the formation of a bill. And through this then, in terms of bringing the reform forward to all the corresponding social security benefits that apply to special rules. And I suppose to ensure that there's a consistent and clear set of rules across all of our local social security and benefit system as well. So I suppose what I'm coming to committee about today is to say that I will be bringing forward this bill that has now been completed to the executive for approval and sign off. I am asking that this is done through accelerated passage. The reason for that, I know this sounds like a very repetitive conversation that we have between myself and the committee around accelerated passage. But I do think on the one hand, I mean, we had a shortened assembly term. We obviously had a health pandemic. There were issues around this in terms of, I suppose, bottoming out some issues with Westminster and with Treasury around what we were looking to do, obviously, because we moved on this issue first. But we've been managing to do all of that. And obviously I know that the committee and all of the members on the committee are keen that we do progress on this piece of legislation as well. So I suppose my reason for the accelerated passage is that I'm keen to get this done within this Assembly mandate. I know that many members, all the members of the committee and indeed the House itself are keen that we can progress this within the mandate as well. And the only way that I find that that can be done is through accelerated passage. So obviously it is to alert the committee to that, that I will be hopeful on the back of the executive approving the legislation, that I will then be presenting this back to yourselves for that process. I suppose the bill itself, just by way of a heads up, is obviously it's small in size, so it has 3 clauses to it. Clause 1 amends the life expectancy time frame to 12 months. So across all the various definitions of terminally ill within our social security legislation. And that also includes some technical and consequential amendments just to give the full effect of the change that we're looking to make. Clause 2 also contains powers to make by regulations any further consequential changes required just in relation to the provisions of the bill. And clause 3, makes a provision for the commencement of the changes. And obviously what I'm hoping is that we can conclude on this by the end of March, so at the end of the kind of mandate before PERDA, and then for that to go off, obviously for royal assent for the bill then to take effect as well. And I suppose that's where we are at the moment. The executive had agreed a high-level change back in December of last year in terms of moving to the 12 months and even doing that in advance of Westminster moving, and we know that they're likely to move as well. So in terms of the costings around this, that will eventually land on the AME spend. But I think the executive and certainly myself and engaging with Marie Curie and others felt that we needed to do the right thing and to move on this as soon as possible. So from December, as I said, there were obviously some issues that we needed to talk through with Treasury. We obviously talked to our own Department of Finance. Treasury had asked for some additional information. and we had to go away and do a complex piece of work in terms of bringing it to where we are now. But I'm glad now that we have a bill ready. I will be going to the next executive meeting, or trying to have that placed on the agenda in terms of the bill. I do believe that all parties, in fairness, support this. And they have done since I've taken it on in this role. And again, I'm just coming to the committee today then just to alert you that I will be bringing this, and again asking for approval that we do this through accelerated passage. You'll know Anne's on. I think Mark was due to join us as well. So I mean, if there's any other specific queries around the legislation or the bill itself, we're more than happy to talk about that. I think also, just to ensure that I know there's been talk around a clinical judgment model, and obviously we have talked to Marie Curie and others. I know they're keen to progress this piece of the legislation because they want the change to take effect as soon as possible so that we can protect more people who are terminally ill. But also we will continue to work with them and with others, and indeed with the committee around looking at that clinical model, and obviously working with our health trust and our health professionals is going to be a key part of that going forward. So that will continue to be progressed. Those conversations will continue, but we feel that this legislative change now, and hopefully within, I would like it for this mandate, will be a good thing, particularly for those who find themselves with a terminal illness.
That's great, Minister. Look, thank you for coming to us today. Absolutely, I'm sure I can speak on behalf of everybody to say this is very welcome news. And I know we're often very much against accelerated passage, but I think with this one, certainly in my opinion, I think that that is the right way to go. So thank you for that. I've only just a couple of very quick questions. I know that we're moving now from what we've always termed as a 6-month rule to now a 12-month rule. And you had said that any longer would go against clinical advice, and you did give a bit of an explanation there. Can you give any more idea as to why clinicians are against going any further than 12 months? And you'd also said that the door is open for longer term to monitor international best practice. And just to ask, is there a piece of work been planned in any way? Looking at that, at going beyond the 12-month, because we know that many terminal illnesses, certainly, I mean, dementia, for example, is a terminal illness that many people can live longer than that 12 months, but yet do require their benefits straight away. So just a bit more explanation on that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose the issue around the 12 months criteria, I mean, I would very much see this as a stepping stone. So we're moving now in terms of getting the protections that we can now. So obviously the 12 months aligns more to the definition that's used here by the health service and more generally by the medical council in terms of for end of life care. Obviously, there is a wider review of work being undertaken with the Department of Work and Pensions. And I know obviously they're going to be making a move in terms of the 12 going to 12 months as well. I'm glad that, you know, the Assembly and obviously the Executive has already agreed to that in advance as well. So we're leading the way in that regard in terms of that. We're also looking, I mean, you'll know that Scotland have moved and legislated to remove the timeline completely and the definition to move to a clinical judgment. And obviously we're having discussions with the sectors and those who work with terminally ill people and support them in terms of trying to work further as to what that's going to look like. We know at the minute we haven't seen the full outworking of the Scottish proposal, and obviously we're going to continue to engage our counterparts there to look at that. There will need to be work because if we're moving to a clinical-led model, then we need the health service and the clinicians to work with ourselves. And therefore we want to take that time over the next period once this legislation is through to really look at that in more detail in terms of looking at that clinically led approach, ensure that the health service then can respond to that. So obviously engagement with the Department of Health is going to be critical on this issue as well, and to continue to work with stakeholders and indeed the Assembly and the Committee in terms of making sure that we get the next phase of this right and that we are responding to the needs of people out there, but importantly that our health service can respond and support that as well, and that it's as seamless as possible. I'm not sure if Anne, who I know has been involved in some of the conversations, may want to come in just with any further details or observations as well on this.
No, and I think that it's important, as Minister says, this is very much a stepping stone, but it is crucial. We have had a lot of engagement with the sector in this, and they are very happy that we are moving to the 12-month period. And yes, it is a stepping stone, but it's crucial that we start this process off and get at least the 12 months in, and then we can look at what happens next. I think that's the way we're hoping to go.
No, thank you, and I'm not knocking it at all. I'm welcoming it. I'm very,
Good.
very pleased to see it. Absolutely. I just, and I'm glad to say, I'm glad you said that it is a stepping stone, and we may see further improvement on that. So, look, thank you very much. I'm going to open up to the floor. I've only one person who's said they want to ask a question. That's Kelly.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Minister, and your team. Just to start off by saying, like the Chair has said, accelerated passage is something that we don't normally like because it prevents us from having scrutiny. But I think that this bill in particular has been through the Assembly with so many other motions. And as we know, time is a luxury that people with terminal illness don't have. So I think in this case, accelerated passage is correct. I think that having read through the bill, it's one that all of the asks that we have had before are contained within there. I'm pleased to note from what we've been provided that DWP special rules, they're intending to increase that from 6 to 12 months. Unlike here, they will be doing that over a phased period over 2 years. That's disappointing, but it does mean that eventually they will come in line with us. And I just wanted to put on record, Minister, my absolute support for bringing this bill forward and for the accelerated passage. As I say, it's not something that we want to do. I don't have any other questions on that. I understand the 12 months, and I'd like to thank your team for working with Marie Curie and the other organisations, because this is needed and it has to go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I have Ciara and then I have Mark. So can we bring in Ciara?
Just like Kelly, I would just like to obviously commend the Minister for bringing this forward and for the work of the department, and I suppose likewise as well for the likes of Marie Curie and the motor neuron disease and the tireless campaigning that they have held on the issue. So I've no questions, and very much welcome the work done by yourself. So thank you.
Grand, thank you, Ciara. Can I bring in Mark, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister. I'll be equally enthusiastic as my committee colleagues in terms of welcoming this legislation and offering our support for accelerated passage, which, although suboptimal, is certainly essential when it comes to this vitally important piece of legislation. There's just one issue there, and Kelly had touched on it a bit, and it's around the work that DWP are doing on this, and we're ahead of them in many respects. They're going to be phased in over an almost benefit by benefit basis. I was wondering, and what are the implications there in terms of us doing things differently? And you'll know I'm not particularly precious about parity. I always believe that where we can do things better, we should be doing things better. But I was just wondering, was there, or what were the implications in terms of cost and so forth?
Yeah, no, well, I think we've obviously been having discussions with Finance and then with Treasury and DWP on this issue. So I think it's good that we have went ahead and that the Executive and indeed the Assembly would endorse that. I believe the majority would endorse that approach for all of the reasons that you have all said there. There is an estimated cost in terms of moving anywhere between 1 million to 4.4 million for 2022-23, with a central cost of 2.3 million. We know that obviously that would initially come out of the block grant, but once obviously Britain starts to move, Westminster, in terms of then moving to the 12 months as well, then that will then start to go back onto the AME spend. And they have also indicated that there would be no repercussive impacts then of making this change. Which is a good thing as well. So obviously we have broke in terms of our parity. I believe it's for the right reasons, and that the committee are supporting, but they are following suit, as Kelly has indicated as well, and that will revert back. So there will be an initial cost in terms of the block grant, and we're hoping then over the next period then that will fall in onto the AME spend then going forward.
But thank you, Minister. But in terms of systems and that sort of stuff, are we okay? Are the systems in place for us to do this, deliver this essential and vital support to people, or is there any additional investment required in that? You know, I'm just thinking in terms of the need for speed. We need speed to get this legislated for, but then to get it operational. Is everything in place to do that?
Yeah, well, I'll pass to Anne. We've been working in terms of that with DWP and stuff as well. So, Anne, do you want to?
Well, I think that obviously, Mark, as you know, I'm on the policy side of things. We have been working very closely with Mickey Kelly on the ops side, and he doesn't believe that there is any issue with this. Now, I can't give you, I don't know if he is going to have to get extra staff or anything like that. I can come back to you on that, but we don't believe that this is a problem for us. We're expecting to push ahead as soon as this legislation is through.
No, but very brilliant. But it's important that we are
Yep.
ready to roll with it.
Absolutely,
As soon as
yes.
we do get it
Yeah.
through. I think that's important.
We've been working on that vein, Mark, because we know there's no point in having the legislation through and then not being able to do it. And the priority is that people don't have time to wait about. So there's an utmost priority from the department to ensure that once the legislation is through, that this will be a seamless transition, that we will start to hit the ground running in terms of the implementation going forward. So there has been a lot of work done behind the scenes. We can provide more of a written response to the committee on that issue. Just to clarify all of that in terms of the process, there would be no issue at all. So we can forward that to you as well in advance of obviously going through the accelerated passage process.
Mm-hmm.
Super, and good luck. Hopefully it doesn't encounter the same or similar impediments to some of the other important legislation that you've been trying to bring through, but I'm sure all parties will be supportive of this.
Great, thanks,
I
Mark.
think in fairness up to now, people have, sorry Chair for interrupting, and people have been supportive across the board. The executive obviously agreed in principle to the approach in December, so I am hopeful that this will go through at pace over the next few months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Minister. Just for bring Paul in, I suppose it would only be, the only change would be just a difference in the DS 1500. When I was in hospital social work, I filled in many of those forms, and it's just the change of 6 months to 12 months. That's the only difference really in the system. There'd be no other differences required. So I don't see how it would cause, there shouldn't be any extra money there at all. Yeah. No, Paul, bring you in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on your point there, and also Mark's point about commencement, I note on clause 3, the commencements, section 2, day after royal assent, section 1, at a point where the department may order a point. Can you tell me exactly what that means and why that is the case, and also what is a realistic timescale in your eyes?
I think.
No, go on ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Paul, I didn't quite catch your question. I couldn't. Just the echo effect. You're asking about royal assent. Is that correct?
No. Commencement. Sorry,
yes.
Commencement. So section 2 comes in the day after royal assent. Section 1, which
yes.
is probably the regulation part,
yes.
is at a time where the department appoints a time. I suppose I'm asking just for the rationale around that, and then also what would be a realistic time to appoint in the department's eyes.
Well, we're going to move to bring this in as quickly as possible. We have to have royal assent first, obviously, before we can bring through the subordinate legislation. So that's what that's about, but it'll all be done as quickly as possible.
Okay.
But I think we are aiming, the plan is to bring the changes into operation by April of next year. So
absolutely.
April 2023.
Yeah, okay, that's very helpful. Can I ask that, I know that there is a definition around terminal illness, but do you see or foresee any condition that would fall out with that definition of terminal illness?
It's very hard to try and think about things that wouldn't fit. I mean, I personally can't, but I mean, we will be guided by the clinicians in relation to this, and if they, we're basing this on the medical approach to this, and if they just describe it in a particular way, then that's how we believe that we should follow. In terms of, I mean, I think if you move outside terminal illness, you're broadening the scope of the entire provision. It really does relate to those who are tragically at the last stage.
I suppose what prompted my question is the Chair's question around dementia.
Yes.
So you have conditions that can be, and I need to be careful with my language, of course, and forgive me if I'm clumsy, but there'll be illnesses that are quite obvious.
Yeah.
And whilst a doctor can basically forecast or give, a medical expert can forecast, there may be some conditions that you can't forecast a time period so succinctly. And I worry for those people that suffer those conditions. They might, and whilst this is really good news, and I support this 100%, I'm just worried that there may be some people with some either very uncommon conditions or ones maybe with a lot of common conditions that people just live with, even though they know that sooner or later it's going to kill them. And I'm wondering about the time scale and then the condition itself, and it might resolve itself if the time scales are removed. But that was prompted by the question around dementia, and I suppose whilst this is a stepping stone, and I support that 100%, I just worry about some people maybe in April will be left off in this regard, and we might need to just worry and cater for those in the future. So that's what prompted my question, and I know it's a hard one to answer because you're trying to search through the range of conditions. Can I ask you another question, and that's me? I see you've listed out the benefits, and all of those are quite obvious.
Yep.
ESA, PIP, universal credit. Again, I'm going to ask you to look through your almanac of benefits. Are there any benefits on that you worry that we should have on, which we don't? Or does that cover the whole gambit?
I think the answer quite simply is that those are the benefits for which there is a terminal illness provision already, albeit it's the 6 months. So those are exactly the same benefits.
Okay, that's a very, very good answer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Nobody else has signified they want to ask anything further, and I suppose that takes us up almost to 9:30. Minister or Anne, is there anything further you want to add?
No, I think that was it. I think it was just again to thank you, Chair, and the committee just for taking us at very short notice. And we're hopeful that this will progress soon and it will come back to you shortly in terms of presenting it for accelerated passage. But just again, thanks very much for your time.
Grand, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay,
Bye.
okay, members, I now need to ask members of this committee, are you in agreement to support the Minister's request for accelerated passage of this bill? Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, we're now going to go into closed session for members to receive.
Excuse me, Chair, sorry to interrupt. Before we go into the closed session, could you highlight the remembrance service thing? I should have put that higher up the...
Yeah, that's okay. Members, just want to highlight this before we go in to closed session then. That the Speaker is conducting a short act of remembrance this morning at 10:55 to mark Armistice Day and the 2-minute silence. So could I therefore propose that we suspend our meeting at 10:50 to allow members to attend that? Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank
Chair,
you.
just to highlight, I've been asked to be part of the Alliance delegation, and I think we've been given a time just after 11:30.
Okay.
I think to go out to do the wreath, so I might pop out at that time.
Yeah, I know we're all part of our own party's delegation, so we kind of will play it by ear about the times of coming back. But if we can, we'll see each other anyway out in the Senate, and we can, out in the Great Hall, and we can organise that and then pass that back to committee staff. All right, members, are happy enough with that? Okay, then we're going to move then into closed session, and we're going to look at effective questioning from Kate Farragher of Bespoke Skills. So are members agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, I'm going to move you into closed.
Ireland Assembly
Okay, open the meeting again. So members, can I then ask any declaration of interest? Could they declare that in relation to items being discussed today, Andy?
Party Trustee, Chair.
Thank you very much, Andy. Move on to agenda item 3 then, which is apologies. Any apologies? I think we're
Chair,
all...
I'd like to give my apologies for just being a few minutes late this morning. The Westlink wasn't too kind to me, so it wasn't.
Not a problem. No bother at all. I know, because you're usually one of the first ones here on your CR. Okay, agenda item 4 is draft minutes. Members, you'll find the draft minutes of the 4th of November 2021 at page 19. Can I ask you content to agree the minutes as drafted?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5 is Chair's business. I will be very, very quick here. We had a party meeting just yesterday regarding with the National Energy Action NI Fuel poverty, which highlighted, and I think it was a discussion that members were having when I walked into the room this morning, just around fuel poverty, and there's major concern. So could I then just propose that we write to the Minister as a matter of urgency, just to ask what plans are in place and the timeline for those plans when it comes to fuel poverty. I see a couple of hands up. I'll take Andy, then Kelly.
Yeah, it was, Chair, just that we can expand on that and ask for an update on the 13.7 million fund. I know the Minister confirmed in the debate on the 2nd of November that she was going to bid for the full 13.7, but can that be leveraged before the next monitoring round? Where does that leave it? And what are the proposals? And ultimately, can we help in shaping those proposals?
Okay, that's grand. Kelly, did you want to come in there quickly?
I was just going to say, part of our correspondence, I think, today, and I just can't find it while
Yes,
I'm
there
looking
is,
at it.
in matters arising to do
About
with
the
fuel
winter
poverty.
fuel payment. It does say from whoever in pensions that Northern Ireland can increase that. It would be worthwhile if we could get some figures from the department. Say, for instance, even with the winter fuel payments, if we were to put an additional £20 or £50 onto that payment, what that cost would be for Northern Ireland, because the amount that's mentioned in the letter is UK-wide as opposed to Northern Ireland.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that, and I would ask for further, it's something else under Chairperson Business I want to bring up. I see that Child Poverty Action Group UK, CPAG, have put out a tweet to say, ask the NI executive to take two steps for a brighter future for children, and that's to remove the 2-child limit and introduce a £20 child payment. So if we could maybe ask some of the questions around that financially, how would that work as well? Because we will be asked as members, whether that's through the media or otherwise, do we support this or not? I think it's important that we get the financial, how much that would cost financially as well. Members agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Chair, sorry, could I ask, can we also write to the Department for the Economy to ask what's happening with those energy providers to see if there's any negotiations happening? I know that the Economy Committee have been looking at this, but given the fact that energy is within their remit, it's what they're doing to bring forward solutions for the public.
Okay, we can do that as well. All right, I'm going to swiftly move on to agenda item 6, which is matters arising. Members, you'll find at page 29 a departmental response in relation to SL1, the Job Seekers Allowance and Employment Support Allowance. We requested that the department provide details of any outcome of the consequential amendment being missed and what impact, if any, this has had on individuals. The department advises that it has not been challenged on the ambiguity of the regulations, and the provision to be omitted has not been applied in practice, so no existing claimants have been affected. Members content to note that?
Agreed.
Next, can we move on to page 30, where you'll see a departmental update in relation to the Changing Places Toilet Fund. The department received 69 applications to this year's programme, and 59 projects were successful, including 6 projects from 4 councils to install changing place facilities designed to meet the needs of people with higher levels of impairment. These 6 projects have been projected at a cost of £139,666, and details are provided. Content to note, Kelly?
I was just going to say, I'm a little bit concerned actually by what the councils are spending the money on for changing places. How open are these facilities to the public? Because not all of those places are open 24 hours a day. So what happens if somebody's disabled and needs a changing place toilet, they just cross their legs? So I would like to just find out how effective this will be and go back to the department just to ask them, how is the money being invested to provide access to toileting? Is it 24 hours a day or is it just piecemeal?
Okay, no, I think that's an excellent point. Members content then that we move on from that? Can I then take you to page 32 where you'll see a Departmental Response in relation to the COVID-19 heating payment scheme. 223,424 individuals have received payments under the scheme totalling just under £45 million. Again, are you content to note that piece of information? Go ahead, Andy.
Just very quickly, Chair, part of the question we did ask was in relation to the whole appeal element. It doesn't give us any information as to how many who have subsequently had their appeal upheld have actually received the payment.
Okay, we can further ask that question then. Thanks, Andy, for that. Okay, we're going to move on then to page 33, where you'll see a departmental response in relation to the Employment and Support Allowance and Universal Credit Coronavirus Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 2021. The committee queried the numbers in this category and the department advised that there is nothing within the data currently held or within the benefit computer system that would allow the department to properly identify how many people were in this special category. Again, members, are they content to note that? Yeah, not much we can do. Yeah. Okay, then I'm going to move on to page 34. Again, another departmental response, this time in relation to legislative consent motions. As far as the department is aware, all requests for LCMs have been presented to the Minister and have been brought forward to the committee and assembly in line with due process. So that's good to know. Content to note that also, members?
Agreed.
Okay, and I'm going to do one more final one before we stop, and that's at page 35, another departmental response, and this time in relation to the Shared Prosperity Fund. A breakdown of the loss of EU structural funds is not available by the sector, but a list of those organisations affected is at Appendix A. Details of the SBF have yet to be announced, so at present the department cannot determine the level of financial support that may be offered under the scheme. Compared to current levels of EU funding, the potential implications for local organisations remain unclear at this stage. Kelly, go ahead.
Could we ask a follow-up question of the department? If the funding is not provided to these groups just to stand still and continue what they're delivering, what is the social impact going to be of the lack of that delivery?
No, you can certainly ask that further follow-up question. Okay, members, I then propose that we stop for a short time to allow those members that want to take part in the remembrance service. So, thank you. Okay, members, welcome back. We're going to move on to agenda item 13 and the other items of business we can come back to. So, agenda item 13 is the committee deliberations on the Charities Bill. Members, the committee will now continue its deliberations on this bill, and members, this is not yet the formal clause-by-clause stage. We again today have the opportunity to go through the clauses and review with the department any issues raised by the committee, members or stakeholders. Members, could I also remind you that we previously heard from the independent review panel in closed session, and therefore we still should not refer to anything they raised as their work is not yet published. Members, you've been provided with papers for this item starting at page 457 with a copy of the bill. The departmental reply to our queries from the meeting on the 21st of October is at page 421. Officials have confirmed that the last two paragraphs of response numbered GM 1411 were subsequently overtaken by GM 1435. There you go. There's further correspondence then also from Mr Trevor McKay at page 415, and at page 450 is a response from the Charity Commission NI to committee queries on registration. The clause-by-clause evidence summary tables start at page 473. Members, just to remind us all, the aim of the deliberations today is to firstly to hear from the department on the queries we put to them after our meeting on the 21st of October, decide if any amendments are to be considered and if that would be the most appropriate course of action, or whether a committee recommendation or ministerial assurance would suffice. Clarify with department if this is something that the Minister would be happy to undertake, either ministerial assurance or amendment, and then to clear up any further outstanding issues or queries in respect of the clauses. So we have with us Sharon Russell and Martin Ireland from the departments are here in attendance, and also Claire McCanny from the Bill Office is following proceedings and will be available to the committee for a closed session at the end of the meeting should members wish to discuss options for amendments and instruction for drafting committee amendments. So our members all agreed then that we proceed with that information, okay? So then can I remind members that questions or comments should be focused on the specific clause under discussion, and if members are content then we'll make a start and welcome to the meeting Sharon Russell and Martin Ireland. So Sharon and Martin, you're both very welcome today. We're going to then start, of course, at the beginning at clause 1, which is actions of commission staff treated as commission actions. So starting with clause 1, members, you were emailed a copy of my brief which outlines the queries we put to the department on clause 1 after the meeting of the 21st of October, and a copy of the deliberations table which includes the queries and a summary of the relevant responses. So Sharon, if you could take us through the department's responses to the committee queries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for having us back again to help with your deliberations. Can I just quickly, and I won't take much time, but just to reiterate, please, if you can allow us to reiterate the Minister's apology given at last week's meeting for the 1 week delay in providing these, I think you'll find today, hopefully, fuller and fulsome responses. We're so mindful, I think, Chair, that we are only in front of you with this bill today because there was previously flawed legislation. So I know that you will understand that we are taking particular and extra care to get comprehensive legal advice and take that under consideration this time. So I think we found that important to take the extra legal advice, consider it carefully, and I think the Minister has now had the benefit of that really comprehensive to and fro. And not only that, but we've also been able to, as you'll see from the response and from Martin, the Minister has indeed agreed to amendments, and indeed we've actually drafted the amendments with the Office for Legislative Council. So I just wanted to apologise and put it in context that essentially this was about getting it right for you and for this bill, and I think we're in a much better position today to give you a fulsome and very positive, I think, response. So if that's okay, I think Martin would be happy to walk through the detail. He's done all the work.
That's grand. Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Sharon. Chair, clause 1, actions of commission staff treated as commission's actions. The committee queried why section 37 was not included at clause 1.5, thereby remaining unlawful. Section 37 allows the commission to direct a person to apply property in a specified manner. I can confirm that no section 37 order has ever been made by the commission, either prior to McBride or since, and therefore there's no need to include it in clause 1.5. With respect to section 22.3 and 23.1, during one of the evidence sessions, it was raised that if we were to make these lawful, there are no appeal rights in respect to 22.3, and there are limited appeal rights in respect to 23.1. This is indeed the case. We've determined, following consideration of the matter, that the validity does potentially remove a legality argument for third parties, which they could have utilised to argue that any processing of data was unlawful, as it did not have a statutory footing. This could therefore hinder a third party's recourse to the Information Commissioner, which is the appropriate mechanism for challenging such decisions, as opposed to the Charity Tribunal. You'll remember that 22.3 is about the gathering of information during a statutory inquiry, and 23.1 is about the gathering of information more generally in respect to the performance of the Commission's functions. Ministers therefore determined that section 22.3 and 23.1 should be added to clause 1.5 of the bill, which is in keeping with our previously stated policy that the bill should do nothing that could impinge on the rights of individuals under ECHR. In addition, and upon further reflection, Minister has also determined that the administering of an oath or the requirement to make and subscribe a declaration of truth under Section 22(4) should also be included in Clause 1.5. These decisions and orders will therefore remain unlawful and thus free to be challenged by way of the Information Commissioner or NIPSO if a party remains still aggrieved by that decision, or indeed the courts. Moving on to appeal rights and extending the time frame, the committee asked the Department if it would be willing to extend the time frame for appeals. Minister has concluded that there is justification for extending the time frame for appeals arising from this bill and will amend the time frame accordingly from 42 to 91 days. Although the evidence sessions indicated that the time frame for appeals generally was insufficient, any proposal to extend the time frame for appeals to the Charity Tribunal generally cannot be affected by this bill, as the Charity Tribunal rules are the responsibility of the Department of Justice. However, Minister would be content that officials consider this matter further and work with the Department of Justice with a view to a possible future amendment to the Tribunal rules. Creating new appeal rights where none previously existed. As you will be aware, Clause 1.7 of the bill provides fresh appeal rights for decisions made lawful by the bill where they are provided for in Schedule 3 of the Act. This bill is about returning charities to the position they were in prior to the McBride judgment. Importantly, therefore, new appeal rights are not provided where they did not previously exist, nor for decisions that are to remain unlawful. This means a number of regulatory decisions, orders or directions where decisions were taken prior to McBride will be made lawful with no obvious appeal right. However, other protections are provided and no adverse ECR impacts are evident. The issue of creating completely new appeal rights where none previously existed is complex. It would have to be determined what the appeal should be against, who could appeal it, and what the Tribunal's powers should be. The issue concerning 22.3, 4 and 23.1 can be dealt with effectively by adding them to Clause 1.5. If new appeal rights were provided where they did not previously exist, for those that are being validated by this bill, but not to provide the same appeal rights for all decisions arising from those same provisions, this would create a disparity in the way in which similar decisions are treated before and after royal assent. This could give rise to legal challenge. For example, however, if new appeal rights were provided for all decisions arising from 22.3 or 23.1 going forward, it could hugely impact the number of appeals to the Charity Tribunal and seriously affect the Commission's ability to gather the evidence needed to deliver its statutory functions. Consequently, Minister is not minded to do so. The committee raised the issue of charitable incorporated organisations and whether they are outside the scope of the bill. Charitable incorporated organisations, or CIOs, are a charitable entity with their own legal personality, with the ability to conduct business in their own name and limited liability, so that its members and trustees will not have to contribute in the event of financial loss. Part 11 and Schedule 7 of the Charities Act Northern Ireland 2008 already introduces the concept of the CIO in Northern Ireland, makes provision for their registration, the conversion of charitable companies into CIOs, the amalgamation of CIOs, and allows the Department to make regulations to make further provision. There is therefore no requirement to include the introduction of CIOs in this bill, as the powers are already contained within the Charities Act, but have not yet been commenced. However, a CIO must be registered in order to avail of the benefits, in that it's only regulated by the Charity Commission and not also Companies House, and therefore the power to introduce the registration threshold is wide enough to disapply any registration threshold for CIOs. As the committee will know, the independent panel conducting the review of charity regulation was looking at the issue of CIOs in Northern Ireland, and the Minister will consider any recommendations arising in that regard.
finished there, Martin? So,
Yes,
Sharon,
sorry, that's clause 1.
Clause 1. Look, that's grand. Look, thank you. And I do just want to make comment, and I'm very grateful that a lot of our committee suggestions have been taken forward, so that is good news. Thanks for that. I have no specific questions. I'm going to ask members if they any. Paul?
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin, for your presentation and, of course, for the amendments as suggested by the Minister. It is, I think, very, very helpful and very constructive, and it shows the good working between committee and department, so thank you. Can I ask a specific question around the time frame for appeals? The Minister seems to be saying that yes, 91 days is an appropriate time, but then you go on to talk about the tribunal rules. So,
yes.
Does that mean that you're going to amend this bill, but then there has to be another piece of work done on tribunal rules, or does the amending of this bill do it for you?
No, this bill will only amend it for appeals arising from decisions made lawful by this bill. Going forward, if it is felt that 42 days is not enough generally for any appeal arising, then we would commit to working with the Department of Justice to changing the tribunal rules to affect that. But this bill will only extend the time frame for appeals arising from decisions made lawful by this bill.
So when you talk about tribunal rules and other tribunals, what other tribunals are you talking about specifically?
Sorry, we're only talking about the charity tribunal rules. They're the responsibility of the Department of Justice, and they set that 42-day time frame for appeals generally. So in order to change that, if you wanted to change, if an appeal arose, for instance, from a lawful decision after royal assent, the time frame for it would be 42 days. Unless we change the tribunal rules, and we can only do that working in conjunction with the OJ.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. That's me.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Kelly, do you want to go in?
Just following up on that, I thought that in evidence sessions that the Department for Justice were happy enough to go with the additional days. Could that not be added in as a consequential amendment at the end of this bill?
They're happy enough to go with the extension of the time frame for the appeals arising from this bill. We have not sought their views on extending the time frame generally. That would be a separate piece of work.
So it couldn't be added on as a consequential amendment?
I can check that.
Yeah.
I can check that for you.
Thank you.
That's grand, thank you. Any other members want to ask anything around clause 1 at this stage? No other members have indicated that they want to. Then I think then we're going to move then on to clause 2, power of commission to delegate staff. Again, members, you have a copy of my brief and the deliberation tables, which it's really helpful. Yeah. There's Sharon or Martin, go ahead then.
Okay, Chair. The committee queried why, when sections 33 to 36 have been included in clause 929A2 as powers that can never be delegated to staff, why section 37 was not. Section 37, as I previously said, is the power of the Commission to direct a person to apply property in a specified manner. Minister recognised that statutory inquiries and the resultant orders taken under sections 33 to 36 can have a huge impact on individuals in terms of their reputation and their ability to continue within the charity sector. The Section 37 power, whilst important, doesn't appear to the Department to have those same impacts on individuals. The fact that Section 37 is not included in Clause 9A2 does not make it inevitable that it will be delegated to staff, as it would have to be decided in a scheme of delegation which would be consulted on. However, in the interest of addressing the committee's concerns, we believe there would be some justification in including it in Clause 29A2, as Section 37 decisions could have major implications for a charity and its trustees, and this is reflected in the fact that Section 38 of the Act treats 37 orders in the same way as those of Sections 33 to 36 in terms of notification of the Commission's decision and a statement of the Commission's reasons for making it. Minister has therefore agreed that amendment could be made to the bill so that Section 37 is included in Clause 2, 9A2, meaning that they can never be delegated to staff. As I previously stated, the Commission have never used this power to date, so it's not a big thing to include it in Clause 2, 9A2. The committee was also concerned that by stipulating that powers under 33 to 36 could never be delegated to staff, whether that would allow the Commission the flexibility to respond in cases of urgency. However, these powers are rarely used, and it's the Department's view that the decision-making committee of the Commission could have emergency procedures in place to deal with matters of urgency. Indeed, this has been the case since the McBride judgment. The Minister believes that such powers should not be delegated to staff of the Commission, given the particular issues that have previously arisen in Northern Ireland. It was also queried if the bill could stipulate that a public consultation would be undertaken on any scheme of delegation. The Minister has determined that the bill will be amended to state that such a consultation will be undertaken on the first scheme. This will allow future ministers the flexibility to determine whether any subsequent change is of such significance that it requires further consultation, but wouldn't tie a minister to consulting on every change. That's Clause 2 then, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Again, thank you, Martin, for that. Can I ask members, have they any questions that they have for Martin on Clause 2? Are we happy enough with what we have in front of us? Yeah, I think it's been pretty much again good. Well answered. Okay, then, Martin, if we could move on to Clause 3.
Certainly, Chair. The committee wished to be content that the drafting of the power to make the regulations was wide enough so that it could stipulate that a threshold would be income or income plus assets, and also by considering the option of a choice to register, either because a charity falls below the threshold or because it does not choose to register for a legitimate reason. I can confirm that the power is wide enough to include a threshold of income only or income plus assets. It will also be capable of allowing an organisation that falls below the threshold to register voluntarily and therefore get the benefits of that registration. However, it could not allow a charity above the threshold to choose not to register, as the Charities Act does not provide for a legitimate reason not to register, and the policy and intent in respect of the power relates solely to a registration threshold based on income or income and assets. The committee further queried if the Minister would be open to specifying a time frame in the bill for the introduction of any regulations introducing a threshold, should the committee support Clause 3. Minister is not minded to do so. It's her belief that such an amendment, if accepted, would statutorily commit the Minister for Communities or a future Minister to introduce a registration threshold, even if they did not wish to do so at the time and the evidence didn't warrant it. That's Clause 3, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks again. Martin, again, members, any questions or points of clarification you wanted? Martin Kelly, go ahead.
Martin, can I just clarify when you said about if a charity is above the threshold for income or assets, whatever that may be, that they don't have the choice not to register. However, a charity is a charity by its aims and objectives, not by the amount of money that it has. So if a charity does not meet those aims and objectives, can they then not be registered? I'm just thinking of CICs or other organisations that may have philanthropic objectives, but they're not charities.
The Charities Act would apply to them as it does now. If the registration threshold doesn't apply to them, then the Commission would apply the charity test within the Act. If they're a charity, they'll be registered. If they're not a charity, they won't.
So that means then that any company that is currently listed in Companies House in Northern Ireland, that it means our Charity Commission won't go through all of those companies and say that should really be on the charity list, that one shouldn't be. and where HMRC are in negotiations with an organisation to say that they're deregistering them as a charity, that they would not then be automatically added to the charity list?
I'm not sure I fully understand what.
I'm just thinking of some of the evidence that we have heard where the Charity Commission has automatically added on companies to the charities list whenever those charities were in negotiations with HMRC to actually come away from being a charity. I'm just wondering about that list. Will this still mean then that even though their objectives don't meet charitable purposes, that
if they're not exclusively charitable, they're not a charity and they won't be registered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kelly, thank you. Anybody else want to ask anything on clause 3? No? Okay, you've got off really lightly, but I do think it is because you have come back with a lot of answers, and I'm glad it did take that extra week because it has most certainly come back with a lot of the concerns the committee have. There have been actions taken on those, so we welcome that. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else we want of you today, Martin. And I think Sharon's gone already, Sharon's in the audience. Sharon's left yet, she's in the audience. She must have dropped out at some stage. Is there anything further? There's Sharon back in again. Is there anything further either yourself or Sharon want to add at this stage before we say cheerio to you at the moment?
Not from my point of view, unless Sharon has something to say.
No.
Nope.
Am I still on?
You are. You're back on, Sharon.
I'm so sorry. I'm in your building today, so I'm on your dodgy, really precarious Wi-Fi. So I've been thrown in and out. Definitely need something done there. So no, it was just really if Chair could be permitted, because Kelly has raised on previous occasions this issue about choice and the charity register, and although Chair, you've been clear about that you heard from.
Oh no.
I've now briefed the Minister, and I would just like to give Kelly some assurance. There are very recommendations around the choices that non-profit organisations have in Northern Ireland, and a need for us to communicate and educate people around those choices. Not everybody does need to be a charity, so...
Yeah, that was one of the things that we have been asked to look at as a committee, so that's helpful. And then that hopefully then will be communicated. Now, that's not retrospective, sure it's not, it's just for going forward.
No, well, it's just about the position anyway, in terms of people understanding that they've got choices in terms of their governing documents and whether they meet the charities test. Okay. So the charities, if you like, charities are a subsection in Northern Ireland of a wider non-profit community and voluntary sector, and we would love to have a session to tease all that out with you. But I just wanted to let you know that the panel has now briefed the Minister, so we're on the road to publishing the report, and I know the committee's keen to be able to use that evidence that you heard.
Yes, please.
Okay, folks, anything else? No, I don't think there is anything else. Can I just ask, Sharon, while you're there, are we then likely to see the text of the amendments coming from the Minister next week?
We've shared them.
The amendments are attached to GM, our letter of the 8th of November.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry about that.
The committee, I thought they were...
They're at Annex A.
Grand, no problem. Oversight on my part.
No worries.
That's not a problem. Look, thank you so much. Really, thank you for being with the committee today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, no, thank you. Bye, bye. Okay, can we bring Claire in, please? There we are. Claire, you're with us. Can you hear us? There we are. Okay, Claire.
Sounds low.
Okay, members, do you propose then, Claire, your sound is very low, you'll maybe have to come a bit closer. Do members want to go into closed session to have a chat with Claire about this? Yeah? Okay. Yes, all right, then we'll go into closed session for a short time with Claire.
This is the Northern Ireland.
Okay, members, we're back in open session again, so we're going to go back to our matters arising. And then if I could ask you to turn to page 38 of your pack, where you'll see a departmental response in relation to the future information we requested on the audit system, and specifically on the 23.8 million underpayments. The response states that as the figures are estimates rather than actual cases, it is not possible to identify how many individuals may be affected by official error underpayments or overpayments, or break these down by geographical area. A range of factors influence the overall level of official error, with delay being one of a number of causes alongside errors such as in calculation or misunderstanding circumstances leading to an incorrect award. The Department has in place a range of measures and management checks and controls to ensure claims and changes of circumstances are processed in both an accurate and timely manner to minimise the risk of official error overpayments or underpayments. Again, members, any comments? Are they content to note this? Content. I suppose, again, it's another one that we really can't do that much more with, albeit we do know through our constituency offices that overpayments and underpayments do occur, which leave people in great financial difficulty, but we'll just have to take what they say there. Our members, then we're going to move on then to page 40 of your pack. Again, another departmental response in relation to queries we raised about the transfer of the appeals service and the use of courts as venues for appeals. The accessibility of courts was raised in the report of the expert advisory panel regarding the development of the disability strategy. The panel has recommended that a disability access officer should be designated for all court levels and tribunal settings, and information published online in accessible formats about the reasonable accommodation available. Co-design group members also have suggested that all buildings, room, equipment, facilities and services in use by the justice system should be access-proofed to enable deaf and disabled people to have a quality of opportunity in accessing these services. These are under consideration by the Disability Strategy Cross-Departmental Working Group, and final decisions will be for the Department of Justice. Again, any comments, Kelly?
I was just going to ask, can we write to the working group to ask them what access requirements are they requiring these disability access officers to use, because meeting disability discrimination requirements does not meet the needs of people. It just basically stops an organisation from ignoring people. But, for example, in Newtonard's courthouse, you have to walk 250 yards to get to the lift. There's no seating, there's no handrails, there's no guide to help anyone. So I would really love that expert panel, or the working group, if they could compare or confirm what standards that they're looking at, because we do have, and I will sing our praises, there's a disability access officer in Derry and Strabane District Council, if I'm using the right term, who is fantastic and has a fantastic access remit that she used to test out venues. And if they could use that, that would be a significant improvement on the way they look at courthouses.
Okay, we can ask that question. Maybe it would be useful to get a copy of that, whatever it is she uses, whatever that tool is that she uses as well, for the committee to see that. Members agreed with that, yes?
Agreed.
All right, we will move on then. If you could turn to page 42, where you'll see a departmental response in relation to welfare reform mitigations. The estimated financial impact on hospitals, on households who are not currently eligible for benefit cap mitigation payment is £51 per week, and the estimated financial impact on households who are not currently eligible for a mitigation payment in respect of social sector size criteria policy is £10 per week. Again, any comments members wish to make on this, Andy?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure, like everybody around the table, this is a matter of deep frustration that we haven't been able to get welfare mitigations through the executive, and I'm just wondering, and all members may not well be in agreement with this, but I'm just wondering if we would be in a position as a committee to write to the Minister to ask if she would consider a time period in the legislation, because obviously that appears to be the blockade of whether that be 3, 5 years or 10 years, but with the ability to extend as required. I know the Minister's position is that she wants to bin the bedroom tax by not having by not including an end date, but the reality of it is with the continued standoff, there are people out there in society not being mitigated as a result of the loopholes, and I think it's incumbent upon everybody to try to unlock this deadlock.
From what I've been led to believe through the grapevine is that the Minister and the Executive have come to an agreement on things, so I think it's pretty much imminent. We will hear very soon, but agreement has been reached. So that's what I've been led to believe, albeit I don't sit on the Executive, none of us do, but that's what I've been led to believe, which will be good news if that is the case, and I hope it's the case. I think we all hope it's the case. Members, all right, are members content we move on that? Yeah? Okay. Can we move on then to page 44, where you'll see a departmental response in relation to the Women in Community Transformation Programme, or WICT programme. The department advised that decision letters were issued on the 22nd of October. Officials are now working with successful applicants and issued contracts for funding during the week commencing the 25th of October, with the programme start date of the 1st of November. All contracts issued by the department have a start and end date, and it is the responsibility of the funded organisations to manage their projects in line with this. Again, any comment or content to note, I suppose I'll just add that I was made aware of one of the projects in my area. I was made aware of that at the weekend, so I know that work has already started, certainly in Rathcoole part of North Belfast. So members content to note that. Mark Jerkin is looking in. I hope it wasn't on something in the past that I've missed him. Mark, come on ahead.
The drawbacks of Starleaf. Well, I'll go on this one first. Chair, and you referred to a project in your own area that you're aware of. I wonder, have we been furnished with a list of the successful applicants for this? It would be useful.
I think we had asked for that.
The previous item, Chair, in terms of what you've heard on the grapevine about an agreement being reached, I certainly hope that is accurate, but you didn't hear what the agreement is, no?
No, I'll say. No. Mark, I said no. I'm not going any further on that. But I think everybody will be.
I'm not asking you to, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, I like the way you used that pause there.
I know.
Right, that was very effective questioning.
It was. And in relation, I think, to if we go back to that WICT one as well, I think we did ask that whenever we had the department in, if I remember rightly, for a list of those groups that have been successful in being awarded this new funding. And I know they should have a list by now if it was starting to roll out. What start date was the 1st of November. So I think if we could get that, I think it would be good for us in all of our own areas as well to know where that money has gone to. Anything else, Mark, on that? Or?
No, that's fine, Chair, thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, can we move on then to page 45? Where again we have a departmental response, this time in relation to the development of the social inclusion strategies. The Minister remains committed to delivering the social inclusion strategies within this Assembly mandate, and next steps include arrangements for public consultation on the draft strategies, and this will be confirmed following the next Ministerial Steering Group meeting, and further update will be provided to the committee in due course. Members content to note that? Yep. Again, not much more we can do on that at this stage. Can I then ask members to turn to page 48, where you'll see a response from DWP in relation to the winter fuel payment. The response states that the UK Government has committed to keeping the payment and will continue to pay £200 to eligible households with someone between the state age or state pension age and 79, and £300 to a household with someone aged 80 or over. The Northern Ireland Executive is responsible for social security in Northern Ireland and is able to set the winter fuel payment rate independently of the UK Government. So, members, any comments on that? I know my own parents received their letters, so they did, about their amounts. But that is interesting then that Northern Ireland Executive is responsible and is able to set their own winter fuel payment rate. Andy, do you want to?
Sure. I wonder if we can maybe just follow up that and ask when the last time if at all it has been last reviewed or assessed in terms of Northern Ireland.
Yeah. No, that's fine, because this is for people over state pension age we're talking about, not any of the other cohort. Yeah. So yeah, we can ask that. Any other comments on that, or content to note? Content? Okay, that's all of that business concluded. We're going to move on then to agenda item 7, which is SR 2021-285, the Employment and Support Alliance and Universal Credit Coronavirus Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2021. You'll find a copy of the rule at page 50. Can I ask members, have you any objections to the rule? No? Okay. Then I'll put the following, that the Committee for Communities has considered SR 2021-285, the Employment and Support Alliance and Universal Credit Coronavirus Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2021, and subject to the Examiner's Statutory Rules report, has no objection to the rule. We'll move on then to agenda item 8, which is SR 2021-288, the Job Seekers Alliance and Employment and Support Alliance Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland. You'll find a copy of this rule at page 59 of your pack. Again, can I ask members, have you any objections to the rule? No? Okay, there's no objections to it. Anya, as well, you're here. No objections to the rule, so I'll put the following. That the Committee for Communities has considered SR 2021-288, the Job Seekers Alliance and Employment and Support Alliance Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland, and subject to the Examiner of Statutory Rules report, has no objections to the rule. Moving on then to agenda item 9, which is SR 2021-289, the Social Security Information Sharing in relation to welfare services, etc. Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2021. You'll find a copy of this rule at page 68 of your packs. Excuse me. Members, can I ask if you have any objections to this rule? No. No, thank you. Okay. I'll put the following then, that the Committee for Communities has considered SR 2021-289, the Social Security Information Sharing in relation to welfare services, etc. Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2021, and subject to the Examiner of Statutory Rules report, has no objections to the rule. Okay, members, we're going to move on then to agenda item 10, which is correspondence. You'll find a copy of the correspondence memo at page 76 of your pack. So I want to draw your attention to correspondence from the Women's Training for Women's Network at page 134. The group is asking that we review the information that they have sent to us in relation to the WICT programme, as they are concerned at some of the issues that the departmental officials raised when they briefed the committee. Members, can I ask what your views are on how we proceed to this, or do you wish us to forward this to the department for further comment? Can I just ask members, have you any views on this? I know, Andy, you were dealing with them as well. So it's just to ask, will we forward it on to the department for further comment?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best, Chair.
Okay, all right. I just want to raise one more issue under correspondence. Members, you'll see also that we've received the inquiry reports from the all-party group on reducing harm related to gambling, their inquiry. I declare an interest as a member of that all-party group, so it's just to make members aware that that is there. It really does make some good reading. They really did do a really good job. So just to remind you that is there, and no doubt we will get that will be in our committee packs when we do get around to discussing that in the future. All right, members, any other items under correspondence members want to bring up at this stage with correspondence, or happy that we then go along with the correspondence memo? Happy enough? Yep. All right then, forward. I'm going to move to agenda item 11, which is forward work programme. You'll find this at page 409. We'll see a draft forward work programme through until Christmas 2021. Members, any comments or content to note? Content? Oh, sorry, hold on. Mark, go ahead, Mark. Right, if you want to bring them all in.
It's based on correspondence, but it can tie in the future work programme. You notice that the Housing Executive annual reports there. And I've made the point before, only we're further in the term now. Like, I mean, we've been back nearly 2 years now, and I don't know, have we had the Housing Executive in once? It might be an opportunity to bring them in on this annual report, because there are so many issues. Housing's such a massive part of this committee's work, and I genuinely feel that we haven't really made any inroads or touched it too much. And I know there's obviously conflicting time pressures, but I think this is a massive area that we really should have the housing executive in.
I think that's an excellent idea, Mark. I don't remember them being in front of us. Sean's shaking his head here as well. I know we do meet with them as parties and all the rest of it and various other meetings. And I also know we're hoping to have a stakeholder event at some stage, because we've had lots of people who have asked to come and brief the committee in relation to housing, whether that is homelessness or whether that is addictions or whatever it might be. So I think it would be definitely we should have the housing executive in for to come and brief the committee. It might be just around timings. Do we want to hold the stakeholder event before that and get the relevant organisations or individuals to raise their concerns? So I think that's something that we maybe need to plan. Because they will have to come, if we do have a stakeholder event that is to do with housing, they will have to come in and answer questions on issues that have been raised anyway. So I'm happy enough with that. But do we want to look at a stakeholder event first, or a stakeholder event maybe after it? Andy?
Yeah, no, I think that'd be useful, Chair. And I think also we're now a year on from the ambitious proposals that were announced in relation to housing transformation, and albeit a lot has happened in that year, but I'd be very keen to get an update. And I know I've been asked the Minister written questions as an individual member, and they're saying that they're progressing, but I would like to get more sight of what the department's working on, what they're considering. You know, with 45,000 people on housing wait lists right across Northern Ireland, and that's only growing, and you know, we really need a robust response to address. I'm not saying the department isn't doing it, but I don't know what they're doing.
I think very much this mandate has been like no other, as we know, with COVID, and we've had to prioritise, plus the amount of bills that we have. But we can't let this issue slip either, so I'm glad it has been brought up. So if I can leave that with the clerks to try and work something up there and bring it back to committee as to what way we take that forward. Are members happy with that? Yeah?
Agreed.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on then to agenda item 12, which is AOB. Anybody got any other relevant business you want to bring up? Speak now or forever hold your peace, Mark Durkin. Go ahead.
Just one thing, Chair, and it's on rate support grant. This seems to be a perennial issue that I bring up, but several of our councils will have got notice from the department of an intention to have the rate support grant that they receive cut up to the tune of 25%. I believe, I know for Dysart in Strabane Council it'll equate to about 750,000 or £750,000 this year. I wonder, could we possibly get a briefing from the department on this? It's one that adversely impacts the worse off councils, and like I say, we keep coming back here. It keeps being earmarked as an easy cut, I think, but when it's far from, and there are equality issues in my opinion on this as well.
Okay, no problem, Mark. Which support grant was that again? Because I didn't pick up the beginning of it. The what?
Rate support grant.
Right, okay.
Rate support grant.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. Sean, were you saying something there?
Whether it was more briefing or a written briefing.
I think if we can get a written briefing in the first instance, is that okay, Mark? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Dead on. All right, okay, we're going to then just move, that's us finished, so we're going to move to agenda item 14. I'm looking around me to say, is that right? Is that where we are? Okay, which is date, time and location of our next meeting. Members, the date of our next meeting will be next Tuesday, the 16th of November 2021 at 9 AM in room 30, when we will continue to take evidence on the private tenancies bill. Thank you very much, members.
Ireland Assembly, Committee Room 29.